Justin, you ever seen the movie 48 Hours? Right now, he's having 48 hours with Diddy, him and his boy. They're having the times of their lives, like, you know, where we hanging out and what we doing. We can't really disclose, but it's definitely a 15-year-old's dream. You know, I have been given custody of him. You know, he signed to Usher.
It was hard for me being that young and being in the industry and not knowing where to turn, and everyone, you know, telling me they loved me and, you know, just turn their back on you in a second.
People don't know how serious it got. Like, it was legit crazy scary. I was waking up in the morning and the first thing I was doing is popping pills and smoking a blunt and starting my day. You know, so it just got scary. I basically said to myself, oh my God, if you're real, you get me through this season of stopping these pills and stuff, and if you do, I'll do the rest of the work.
Yeah, I mean, what's the odds that you would do that in front of a camera? Like, that's one of the moments where you forgot.
Wait, what really happened during those 48 hours with 15-year-old Justin Bieber? Netflix deleted it. Diddy said it couldn't be disclosed, but Bieber said he saw everything. Subscribe to VIP Celeb Zone before this disappears. For years, we've all heard the same story about Justin Bieber and Sean Diddy Combs. You know the one. A talented kid breaks into the music industry, gets taken under the wing of a powerful mentor, and rockets to global stardom. On the surface, it's the classic Hollywood success story, but new revelations tied to the Diddy documentary suggest we've only been seeing part of the picture, and not even the most important part. According to statements connected to the documentary, Justin Bieber has said he saw everything. Not just what made it into the final cut, but all the footage, conversations, and moments that got left on the editing room floor. And here's where it gets serious. He's saying he didn't just witness these things from the sidelines. He lived through them. As did his protege, Bieber was deep inside that world when he was just a kid. He spent real time around Diddy, learned directly from him, and was shaped by that environment during some of the most critical years of his life. Diddy showed him how the industry really works, how power moves behind closed doors, how to handle fame, how to play the game. But that kind of access came at a cost. It meant exposure to things the public never saw and was never supposed to see. So let's dig into what was reportedly cut from the Diddy documentary, why certain details might have been removed, and why Justin Bieber's perspective matters so much. When you look at his connection to Diddy and the experiences he says he actually lived through, a much darker, more complicated picture starts to emerge. This isn't just about what got edited out of a documentary. It's about what was hidden, who knew about it, and how it may have shaped one of the biggest stars on the planet. For a long time, people wondered if 50 Cent was really going to deliver on what he'd been teasing. There were interviews, social media posts, cryptic warnings, but no actual product. Until now, he's released a multi-part series that tries to map out Diddy's entire rise to power. Not just the success story, but the environment that surrounded him everywhere he went, the power, the access, and the silence that came with being in his inner circle. Throughout the documentary, old footage resurfaces, clips that hit completely different now than they did back then. Moments that were laughed off as jokes or just industry culture suddenly carry real weight. One of the most disturbing involves a very young Justin Bieber spending significant private time under Diddy's supervision. At the time, it was spun as mentorship, opportunity, exposure to the industry, but the lack of transparency about what was actually happening, and the insistence on keeping things quiet, feels deeply alarming when you consider what Bieber has said since. He's admitted that period of his life was so dark, so destructive, that he's not sure he would have survived if it had gone on much longer. When the person who actually lived it says that, it changes everything. As the series unfolds, it becomes crystal clear 50 Cent wasn't interested in making some polished legacy piece.
I believe Cassie's a victim in all this because she came in as such, she's like 18, like 19 years old. In the very beginning, after a while, over time, you conditioned for it.
The voices you hear are from people who were actually inside the circle. Former associates, security teams, artists, insiders, people who describe an atmosphere built entirely on control and fear. They talk about behavior that spiraled completely out of control, environments where excess wasn't just accepted but normalized, and situations that pushed people right to the breaking point. These aren't distant accusations from people looking for their 15 minutes. These are first-hand accounts from people who say they barely escaped with their lives. When the documentary dropped on Netflix in early December, the reaction was instant. Clips blew up everywhere. People were absolutely stunned by how direct and unfiltered some of the claims were, especially considering Diddy is currently behind bars awaiting trial. The timing alone made it feel like someone had finally crossed a line that had been off limits for decades. But even with all that explosive content, it became obvious pretty quickly, this still wasn't the whole story. 50 Cent himself hinted that what made it onto the screen was only a fraction of what he actually uncovered. Some material was deemed too dangerous to broadcast. Other stories were still developing in real time as the series went live, with new people coming forward the moment they saw the wall of silence finally starting to crack. To understand why certain details are still buried, you have to go back and look at the history of Bad Boy itself. The late 90s weren't just about the music.
The hip-hop is fine with its behaviors. There's no one else being vocal. So you would look at it and just say, because that mind your business, or let me not say nothing about nothing, or those things, it would allow the entire culture to register as if they're for that behavior.
If Sean Combs watches this, what do you think he's going to feel?
Like, wow, this is amazing. I think he's going to say this is the best documentary I've seen in a long time. Because you'll see people saying that. I mean, he may feel a different way about pieces and bits of it, but he knows the truth. I think he'll see the truth in it.
It was about territory, power, and survival. When Biggie was murdered in Los Angeles in 1997, it sent shockwaves through the entire industry. The official story focused on the loss of a legend and the violence of the East Coast-West Coast rivalry. But behind closed doors, there was absolute panic. Artists and insiders were scattered, exposed, and had no idea who they could actually trust. That same night, other members of the Bad Boy circle were dealing with their own life or death situations. One artist found himself essentially trapped, isolated, and surrounded by people he genuinely believed were there to hurt him. And when he needed help, it didn't come from where he expected. The people who were supposed to have his back just vanished. That moment completely shattered any illusion of loyalty within the camp. It wasn't about brotherhood or family anymore. It was pure survival. In the years that followed, subtle hints started surfacing. You'd catch interviews where artists would speak really carefully, choosing their words in a way that suggested way more than they could actually say out loud. Cryptic references to documents, insider knowledge, experiences they couldn't share without facing serious consequences. The message was crystal clear. Being inside that world meant knowing things that could literally put you in danger just for acknowledging them. This is exactly why Justin Bieber's comments carry so much weight now. When he says he saw everything, including what got cut, it doesn't sound like he's being dramatic. It sounds like someone who recognizes a very familiar pattern. Getting access at a dangerously young age. Silence disguised as protection. Experiences that stay buried for years, sometimes decades. The 50 Cent documentary isn't just exposing one man. It's pulling at a thread that connects decades of completely unchecked power. And Justin Bieber's story? It might be one of the clearest examples of just how long that thread actually runs. But here's the thing, the documentary doesn't just leave out minor details. It completely avoids entire people, entire timelines, whole perspectives that would have made this story way more complicated and way more uncomfortable to watch. There's one massive missing chapter that makes the gaps in this documentary impossible to defend, and this one revolves entirely around Justin Bieber, not as some quick cameo, not as background B-roll, but as a story so deeply uncomfortable that Netflix chose to avoid it completely. In 2009, Justin Bieber was only 15 years old. He was still just a kid from Canada who'd been discovered singing on YouTube in his bedroom, with absolutely no understanding of how the music industry really operated. His fame was brand new, his world was tiny, his power? Non-existent. That's when he entered Diddy's orbit.
What's up, man? You good?
I'm good. How are you?
All right, young brother, everything's good?
Everything's
Selling
great.
out arenas and everything? Starting to act different, huh? You ain't been calling me and hanging out the way we used to hang out.
Well, I mean, you try to get in contact with me, through all my, partners and whatnot.
That same year, Diddy uploaded a video to his own YouTube channel with the title, Justin Bieber, 48 Hours with Diddy. On the surface, it looks pretty harmless, a powerful music exec hanging out with the next big thing. Diddy even frames it like it's a dream come true for a teenager. But then the tone shifts. He says he has custody of Bieber for 48 hours. And then he adds something that has never sat right with people who go back and watch this clip today. He openly states that where they're going and what they're doing can't be disclosed. That detail? That's the problem. This wasn't said privately behind closed doors. It was said on camera, mirror, publicly, about a minor, a 15-year-old kid spending 2 full days alone with one of the most powerful men in the music business, with the clear implication that the details were off limits. That's not mentorship. That's not normal industry behavior. And the fact that it was presented so casually at the time only makes it more disturbing now. In the video, Bieber is smiling. He looks excited, but context changes everything. We now know how vulnerable he was during those early years, how fast fame completely overwhelmed him, how close he came to self-destruction. When that footage resurfaced years later, especially after Diddy's arrest, people didn't see it the same way anymore. Comment sections absolutely exploded. Viewers described the video as unsettling, creepy, deeply inappropriate. What once looked like a harmless celebrity hangout suddenly felt like something much, much darker. And yet, 50 Cent's documentary doesn't include it. Not a single clip, not even a reference, not even a discussion. In 2025, Justin Bieber's team released a carefully worded statement that only deepened the unease. His representative clarified that Justin was not identifying himself as a victim of Diddy, but in the very same breath, they acknowledged that other people were genuinely harmed. That distinction matters. It suggests knowledge without disclosure, experience without detail, survival without explanation. Bieber himself has spoken openly about how dark that period of his life really was. He said flat out that he doesn't believe he'd be alive today if things had kept going the way they were. He credits stepping back and finding real stability as what ultimately saved him. When you place those statements right next to that 2009 video, the questions become impossible to ignore. What actually happened during those 48 hours? Why was secrecy emphasized so strongly? And why was this footage never addressed in a documentary that's supposedly exposing the truth? But here's the thing, Justin Bieber isn't the only example. Years before Bieber, another child star was placed directly in Diddy's care. Usher. In the early 1990s, Usher was just 13 years old when his family sent him to live with Diddy for an entire year in New York. The arrangement was called Puffy Flavor Camp.
Moved to New York City, and I lived with Sean Puffy Combs for a year.
That's the crazy thing. Now, that was L.A. Reid's idea, right? We're sending you over to something called Puffy Flavor Camp.
There you go.
To learn
Flavor Camp.
Yeah,
Flavor
that's
Camp.
what it was called. And you're going to go to Puff Daddy's. He's going
In the 90s, do you understand what that's like?
Puffy's place was like just filled with chicks and orgying like nonstop, right?
No, not really. I mean, but hey, it was curious. I got a chance to see some things.
Yeah, but you were 13. What were you seeing?
I went there to see the lifestyle.
Right.
And I saw it. And it was but I don't know if I could indulge and understand what I was even looking at. It was pretty wild.
The idea was simple on paper: mentorship, exposure, learning the business. But Usher has since described that year as wild and completely overwhelming. A 13-year-old kid living full-time in an adult world filled with non-stop parties, industry power players, and situations he was way too young to process or understand.
What I did say is that there were very curious things taking place, and I didn't necessarily understand it.
Biggie Smalls was there.
Biggie Smalls was there. Lil' Kim, Craig Mack.
All these people are hanging around.
Yeah, man. Faith Evans, Jodeci, Mary J. Blige. They didn't know nothing about this shit.
Oh.
I was having a good time, you know what I mean?
Does he have you doing any chores? Are you doing dishes at all? I mean, to keep you humble somewhat? Or are you just like, can you stay up till 4 in the morning with them and party?
I mean, I could. I actually stayed up longer than them.
Usher has said he was exposed to things no child should ever see. Not once, not occasionally, constantly. When asked years later if he would ever send his own kids into that same environment, his answer was immediate and absolute. No hesitation, no explanation needed, just no.
You're a dad now. Would you ever send your kid to Puffy Camp?
Hell no.
That answer says more than any documentary clip ever could. After Diddy's arrest, fans noticed that Usher appeared to quietly scrub his social media presence. No statements, no commentary, just silence. Whether that was coincidence or self-protection, nobody knows. But again, Netflix barely touched this story. No deep dive, no real exploration of what that year actually looked like for a 13-year-old kid. Another missing file. And then there's the Ava Baroni situation. In 2020, a video surfaced showing Diddy with a young girl named Ava. In the clip, she calls him Papa Combs. He kisses her on the cheek and tells the camera that he adopted her. He even compares himself to celebrities known for adopting children and presents the whole thing as something official. The internet reacted instantly. People genuinely believed Diddy had adopted a child. But over time, the story completely unraveled. There were no legal records, no follow-up. Ava didn't appear in any later family moments. Years later, reports clarified that there was no formal adoption whatsoever. According to people close to the situation, the video was described as a skit. Ava was reportedly just a friend of Diddy's daughter's, and the moment was never meant to be taken literally. Still, the way it was framed publicly raised serious questions. Why present it that way at all? Why involve a child in something so easily misunderstood? And why share it with millions of people? Once again, the documentary avoids it completely. When you line all of this up, a pattern emerges that's hard to ignore. Young artists, young children, access to adult worlds, secrecy, carefully managed narratives, and later, silence. Justin Bieber, Usher, Ava Baroni, each story on its own raises concerns. But together, they paint a picture that the documentary simply wasn't willing to confront. This is why the idea of deleted scenes matters so much. These aren't side stories or minor footnotes. They're central to understanding how power actually operated and who was affected by it. Netflix showed what could be safely packaged. What it left out may be the most important part of all. What becomes impossible to ignore at this point is how much of this story exists completely outside the documentary's frame. Not because the material isn't available, but because showing it would have fundamentally changed how viewers understood power, protection, and silence in the industry. These are the deleted scenes, the moments that never made it into the final cut, even though they're sitting in plain sight across interviews, old clips, and first-hand accounts. Justin Bieber's story is one of the clearest examples. The documentary gestures toward the idea of excess and exploitation, but it never fully sits with what that actually looked like in real time. Bieber wasn't just some talented teenager who rose too fast. He was a minor placed into adult spaces, surrounded by powerful men who framed access as mentorship and excess as a reward. The footage exists. Diddy openly talking about having Bieber for 48 hours. Promises of cars, houses, freedom, a lifestyle that a child couldn't possibly understand the consequences of. None of this was hidden when it happened. What's hidden is the context. Now, when Bieber later speaks about addiction, about using substances to escape, about feeling owned by the people around him, those statements are often treated as isolated struggles or just typical celebrity burnout.
Backyard here, got super stoned, and then I realized I liked weed a lot. That's when my desire to smoke weed started, and then I started smoking weed for a while, and then started getting really dependent on it, and that's when I realized that I had to stop. I don't think it's bad, I just think for me it can be a dependency. But yeah, first time I smoked weed, I don't suggest this, but I was 13. Yeah, 12 or 13.
But the documentary never fully connects those dots. It doesn't ask what happens when a child is made responsible for sustaining an empire built by adults. It doesn't linger on the emotional cost of being constantly watched, managed, and consumed, while being told you should feel lucky to be there. That silence matters, because Bieber isn't alone in this pattern. Over and over, we see artists describing the exact same system, the network that disguises control as opportunity, that rewards obedience and punishes resistance, that makes people disappear the moment they stop playing their role. These testimonies are out there, scattered across interviews, podcasts, social media clips, but they're never stitched together in the documentary in a way that actually exposes the structure behind them. Instead, the focus stays frustratingly narrow. Individual scandals, individual accusations, individual downfalls. What gets left out is how interconnected all of these stories really are. How often the same names appear in the background. How frequently protection seems to follow power. This is why figures like Jaguar Wright, Cat Williams, and others feel so disruptive. Not because they're saying something entirely new, but because they refuse to stay within the boundaries of what's considered acceptable to say. Some narratives were simply too risky to include. And one of the most telling omissions? Kim Porter. Kim Porter wasn't a side character in Diddy's life. She was deeply woven into it for decades. The mother of his children. A constant presence across different eras of his rise. Someone who saw the public image and the private reality. If anyone understood what the bad boy empire looked like behind closed doors, it was her. And yet, her story is almost completely absent. Officially, Kim Porter died on November 15, 2018, with pneumonia listed as the cause. But when you look at the weeks leading up to her death, things feel far from normal. Not long before she passed, she appeared at a high-profile Hollywood premiere alongside Diddy. It was a Netflix event centered around her son, Quincy Brown. On the surface, it looked like the perfect family moment. Cameras flashing, smiles in place, the image everyone expected to see. Behind that image, reports say Kim was seriously unwell. She was dealing with flu-like symptoms and a high fever. Still, she showed up. According to people close to the situation, appearances mattered. The family had to look united. The moment had to look polished. And so she stood there, visibly compromised, holding together a public image while her health was actively failing. There were also quiet conversations happening around that time that never made it into the documentary. Kim had reportedly been thinking about writing a book, a personal account of her life in the industry and what it was really like raising children inside that world. Some said it would be harmless. Others believed she had seen and experienced things that powerful people would not want documented. Given her history and proximity, that speculation never fully went away. Her relationship with Diddy was long and complicated. They met in the mid-90s. They had children together. They separated, reunited, and separated again. There were moments of stability and moments of absolute chaos. Despite breakups and betrayals, Kim remained connected to the family structure. She co-parented. She stayed close. She never truly disappeared from Diddy's orbit. There were darker moments too, ones the documentary avoids entirely. During one separation, Kim was involved with music executive Shaki Stewart. Reports later surfaced alleging that Diddy reacted violently to that relationship, leaving Kim injured. So what do you think? How much more is still being hidden? The documentary showed us some of the truth, but clearly not all of it. If this opened your eyes, don't keep it to yourself. Hit that like button, drop a comment with your thoughts, and subscribe to VIP Celeb Zone so you never miss the stories they don't want you to hear. Because when it comes to Hollywood's darkest secrets, we're just getting started.